Finally, he sleeps here. Does the new market have you confused, or do you think you understand it, but you're looking for a way to make coins? Stick around. Hey guys, Finally Sleeps here. The new market has some of you all confused, and I get it. It's definitely not what we're used to. Plus, there's a ton of misinformation out there that isn't really helping anybody. The new market is actually pretty simple when you understand a few simple things. Then you can pretty much adjust your mindset and grasp what we're dealing with. So first of all, this that we have right here, this is not a market. And I've said this a bunch of times ever since the beta released, but some of you are just saying that I'm all pissy just because without a bot, all of my old methods, the stuff that I've created over the last few years, none of those things work anymore. That's not the case. Yes, all of my old methods died with the market bot. Farming, cycle farming, fishing, target fishing, stair stepping, all of that stuff is null and void now because there's no bot in the Nexen release. But this is not a market. This is a player-to-player exchange. That's the word, an exchange. That's the best word for it. It's an exchange. But there's already an exchange down here on the main menu. These are not exchanges. These are trade-ins, because much like the fact that we don't have a market anymore, we have a player-to-player exchange. There's no SBCs in the Nexen model. So in this release of FIFA Mobile, no SBCs. They're not built in. We have these. They're multiplayer trade-ins instead. So these are trade-ins, and the market is actually an exchange. It's not a market. It's an exchange. That's the first thing you need to come to terms with. Second, number two, the players you see here when you load the market are not players for sale. These, we can refresh, these are not players for sale. One more time. This is not a market, and these are not players for sale. We'll go one step further. You can't even search for players for sale. You got to think of this like a catalog. This is a catalog. It's a catalog of past, present, and future players in FIFA Mobile. This is every piece of player art that EA has complete for FIFA Mobile 22 up to date. Some of these players aren't even available yet because they're from New Beginnings and they're not released yet, or they're, chain packs, or that it's a player that's not unlockable at this time. They're in there. They're just in the catalog. Remember that, the catalog. All right. Close your eyes and imagine yourself walking into a BMW dealership. But the lot outside, it's all empty. There's no cars in it. So you go up to the showroom, and in there they have one of every single Beamer they either make now or are going to make in the near future. So then the salesman, he walks up and says, "Here's our selection of BMWs. How can I help you?" And you're like, "I'll take that black 330i sedan right there." So he walks over, opens the trunk, and looks at this sticker on the inside of the deck lid and says, "None of these are for sale at the moment. Doesn't look like any of our owners are looking to get rid of one of these sedans." So you're confused. You walk up to the next BMW and say, "How about this one?" He walks over, same thing, opens the trunk, looks in and says, "These actually aren't even out yet. They're not available." So you shake your head and you go walk down the row a little bit and you come to an M5. Same question. "How much is this one?" Dealer looks in the trunk and says, "Nobody wants to get rid of one of these either." And he sees that you're pissed, so he says, "But wait, here's what I can do for you. If you tell me how much you're willing to pay for this car, I'll make a purchase order for that price, stick it in on the front seat, and as soon as one of our owners is willing to sell their M5 to you for that price, you can have it. So you're like, well, I guess I'm willing to pay $100,000 for this M5. So he asks for the $100,000, basically to make sure you have it. So you pull it out and you're like, here you go. Let's see, I've got it. And he snatches the $100,000 right out of your hands and says, okay. And you're like, wait, what were you doing? Why do you need my $100,000 for a car that isn't even available? And he says, okay, we do need it. It's the way the system works. It's the way this works. So he takes your money and he puts it in an envelope and he writes your name down on it. And then he opens the front door and he sits it on the front seat of the car. You walk over and you look inside and you realize there's like a dozen other envelopes on that front seat with other people's names on them. And you're like, what's all that? And he says, oh, that's the queue for people already willing to pay $100,000 for one of these sports cars. And you're like, what? And he's like, you're 13th in line. And you're like, fuck that, give me my money back. No problem. He opens the door, he grabs your envelope, opens it up, hands you your $100,000 back. This is how the FIFA Mobile market works. So you take one look around the showroom and you say, okay, what about that yellow Z4 back in the corner? So the salesman walks over and he opens the trunk and he says, there's actually 3 of these for sale right now. One for $50,000 and 2 for $51,000. So you hand him $50,000 of your bills and he takes another envelope, puts your name on it, drops it in the front seat. And you look at it and you're like, well, I'm trying to buy the car. And he says, you have to wait a moment. So you look down at your phone, you check your email or whatever, and then the dealer's pager goes off. And yes, in my imaginary BMW dealership, the salesman wears a pager. Anyway, he takes the envelope out of the front seat, he opens it up, the money's gone, but in there is a key. He hands you the key, the exchange has now been made, and you're free to drive home in your brand new convertible. That is exactly how the FIFA Mobile market works. Okay, so let's go back to the game. Now that you kind of understand the scenario, this is like that dealership. It is a catalog of all of the players that are in FIFA Mobile. So this first page is just a random group of players. When you come onto this, it's not like the best or the newest or anything. It's just a random, and you can refresh and it shows you a whole new batch. It has zero to do with whether or not any of these players are even available, because you can't think of it that way. It's just a catalog. It's like loading up Amazon.com and there's a new item every time you load it. That's all this is. Now you can search for players in this catalog, but again, it's just like searching through the catalog of FIFA Mobile players. Now, in order to actually buy anybody, you need to either find one that has pending sales orders, or you need to put a purchase it order in on one just in case one comes up for sale. So we'll just pick somebody. Well, let's just look at Messi. We click purchase, we look at it. And this is the purchase sheet that you do. Let's see. It's like envelopes on the front seat of that car in our imaginary dealership. Right now on this Messi, you have 2 people willing to pay 4.3, one person willing to pay 4.3, one per 4.4, and then 8 people with envelopes are willing to pay 4.46 million coins for this Messi. It's the same thing. So now those top few lines in red are those purchase orders. They're the envelopes with people's cash. The bottom 3 are those 3 lines that we don't see here. Let's see if we can find one that actually has stuff for sale. Go to Azpilicueta. Okay, so we have an Azpilicueta. There is 1 for sale. And that blue line, it shows 1 in the sales quantity and the price. These are people looking to get rid of it. These are the owners that have a car for sale. Again, those numbers are just the queue. That's how many people there are. Now, in order for a sale to go through, so you look at this and they're like, one guy's willing to buy it, one guy's willing to sell it, but their numbers don't match up. In order for an exchange to go through, these two numbers have to line up. Now, if you create a purchase order, your money is taken while you wait for someone to create a sales order for your purchase. It's just like them taking your money and putting in the envelope in the dealership. If at any time you change your mind and decide, I'm not tired of waiting, I don't want to buy that, they give you your money back and you're good to go. It doesn't get taken from you permanently until the exchange is complete. Now, if you create a sales order, you lose your player, no different than you lose your money. So if you decide to sell an Azpilicueta and you put him in the market for whatever your sales order has been created for, you lose that player from your active lineup or your reserves of players. He is held there. Again, he just sits in the market waiting for your purchase order to line up with your sales order. And like I just said, if at any time you want your player back or you want to change the price, you're free to do that all the way up to the moment an exchange has been completed. Now, as we're in here and we're looking at this player, let's flip this so you can actually see it. You can also see what the price trends were for this player. So like right now it shows 935,000. It's just a flat line. It's too early to really do anything with any of this information right now. But as we get further away from the release, these trending curves are going to start to go up or down for all of these players. And you'll be able to use that to see what's on the way up, what has a demand history, what has, high supply or low supply. You can also click on the watch button on any player. So right here we see Azpilicueta right above me. There is a watch button. If we click this, he now goes into my watch list and we can see him here on this page right there that's highlighted. Now, don't think of this as like a bid or anything like that. All this is a bookmark in that catalog of players. It has nothing to do with buying or selling anyone. It's just a bookmark. So one last thing to discuss is the price window. So we see like current price, lowest price, highest price. So if we look at this, you see that gap there, 1.06 to 1.17 million. That is the handicap window. These windows are supposedly going to refresh and adjust based on supply and demand, but as for the details on like when that's going to happen or actually what that's happening, if there's a refresh rate or any of that, we're still waiting on complete info. So before we get into that, I can't really say any more. But those price windows, that handicap window of value for that has more to do with its supply and demand and where it's at. So as a player has a higher supply, the numbers are supposed to come down. If he has a high demand, his numbers will go up. That's what that handicap is for. Now let's recap. It's not a market. Number one, it's an exchange. 2, the players that we see on the recommended page or any of this, they are not for sale. They are just a catalog of what's available. 3, if you create a sales order or a purchase order, you lose the coins or the player while that sales or purchase order is active. They're not gone forever, but you don't have access to them. Now, you can cancel any sales order or purchase order. That's number 4. You can cancel and get your player or coins back all the way up to the moment the exchange is complete. That's everything. Get your head around all that. And those different, it's not a market. It's an exchange. You're going to lose your money if you put something in, or if you place a bid, your card's going to be there. Once you understand all that, it's going to be much simpler to navigate all this. So the big question is, what about making coins? Obviously, that's what everybody wants to know. And that's all going to come down to supply over demand. And without both of those, you're basically shit out of luck. Demand has to be created for a player in order to have a value in this type of player-to-player exchange. Now, if you pack an elite in a shitty position or it's from a shitty league, he's going to have no value, because in order for an exchange in the market to happen, someone has to create a sales order for that specific player. If the handicap window is too high for that player, no exchange is going to go, or is never going to happen, because there's never going to be a purchase order that's going to exist for a player that nobody wants. That's a no demand, regardless of supply scenario. So no demand, doesn't matter how many there are, just nobody wants them. It's always going to end in a player worth nothing more than his XP value, unless a demand is created down the road through an exchange in an event or a lineup requirement, like what we're seeing in the icons right now. Now, if on the other hand, the player has a high demand but no supply, then there will be lots of purchase orders, because people are willing to buy him, but there'll be no sales orders. The prices will trend up and up and up until another player releases to trump that demand of, or the supply of that player overwhelms the demand. So let's look at like Van Dijk. Do I have Van Dijk here? Yeah. So let's look at Van Dijk. This is a player that has 12 purchase orders right now, no sales orders. High demand, no supply. Now, the last possibility is a player with a supply that surpasses the demand. A good example would be like one of the elites in New Beginnings. So if we do a search, we go to program, New Beginnings. Let's look at somebody in here. Curtis Jones is a good example. This is a free-to-play player right now. He's in the path. He should be claimable eventually. Lots of purchase orders. We've got 2 people willing to buy him. People have been, looking for him, but there's no sales orders right now, because as soon as he's achievable with the premium star pass, those sales are actually going to go through, and then those values will start dropping. $846,000 is the highest price suggested right now for an 81 rated center mid that's going to be free to play very soon. We expect that to go way down. And then when he's free to play completely, it's going to plummet. And then eventually it's going to be full of sales orders and no purchase orders, and nothing is going to go through because his supply has surpassed his demand. Now, the easiest way to make serious coins in this new game is to ride those demand waves and sell before they plateau or price out. Short-term investments. This is what I explained in my original beta, Make Millions in the beta market, because we knew the whole thing was going to flop eventually. We knew it was going to time out because they weren't dumping in events or anything. But all of those methods on buying is exactly the same thing. Players that are considered top in their position at any given time will have high demand but are difficult to purchase, so you need to be first in their queue at the highest price possible as they trend up. So like if you're looking in that dealership, back to the BMW scenario, you're looking for the car that doesn't have any envelopes on the front seat, but as soon as it comes out, it's going to be the hot deal. I mean, it's kind of common sense. Then you need to, before they peak, create a low price sales order to guarantee a sale. Now, knowing when the peak is coming and siding on, the side of caution to get rid of those investments before it peaks and drops is the hardest part of this whole thing. Unless we have constant events dumping into the game, it's likely that the players will peak with crazy values really fast. Best investments for this are the players that most likely not going to get a replacement in the next 2 weeks, as people fight to get their highest OVR possible as quick as possible here at the beginning of the season. Like Messi, Ronaldo, Van Dijk, Salah, Mane, Alisson, Bruno Fernandes, etc. Those kind of things. You're looking for high popularity theme squads, which certain players are going to be needed. PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, City, Liverpool, just as an example. I mean, this is kind of like guerrilla purchasing. As easy as it is right now to do this, it's because we're all stuck with base players, and there's not a lot being dumped in. The only thing we have is new beginnings. But be careful. As soon as a new event drops that releases better versions of these players and or like their positions, the demand is going to drop on something that, you know, you may have a supply of. So, and once that happens, if you get stuck with them, you're in trouble. You're going to have to pay attention to what's coming out and when. But again, it's all common sense investing and dumping. Riding the demand waves, long-term investments, not right now. That's completely different. For example, if we want to look at the icons, like if you go to the icons journey, once the league chapter opens up in icons journey, we can reasonably expect La Liga players to trend on the up. Then again, for Atletico players, once that team chapter opens up, I would say it's not a good idea to buy those now, obviously, because prices are way too stupid high. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about on long-term investments. But that's only because we know this and it's a long-term campaign. Short-term investing on demand waves is the easiest way to make millions. And right now, it's with the players that are still purchasable. You might be paying, $800,000 to $2 million for these players right now, but their numbers are going to climb, and they're going to climb quickly, and then they're going to plateau, and then they're going to be out of range where anybody's going to buy them, and then a new event's going to come in and dump, and there will be player alternatives, higher value player alternatives, and this stuff's going to lose all of their luster. Hope that helps. Hope it made sense. And if it did make some sense, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, share, all that stuff. Don't forget Twitch, Finally Sleeps. As long as you guys keep watching, I'll keep making videos.